Gabby, you've called in amazing women in the Las Comadres community.
Oh my God, yes, Jamie.
I want to know more about how they made it.
Yes, right? They're real stories. Where the idea for their business came from, how they invested in it, how they got their clients.
I think this is a podcast.
Well, fairy godmother, you're hosting it.
Do you dream about me? Hi! Hello! And we are super excited to have the Madrina herself here today on the Las Comadres podcast. Miss Gabby Guzmán.
Hi.
Hi! How are you?
I'm great. Jamie just fed me really well. It was this like potato, mushroom, onion thing with eggs, and then she put them in the oven.
I love watching Gabby's face when I feed her because she's like watching everything I'm making, and then she's like so excited for it. I love the food. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, welcome and to your own magical podcast.
It's really amazing. So this has to be said.
Yes.
The idea of the podcast came up. Jamie got super excited about it. And then the next logical question was, Jamie, do you want to do it?
And I, of course, said yes because I love talking to all the comadres and finding out all the really cool things about people.
Yeah.
So we couldn't have a comadre podcast without Gabby. So here we are. So welcome to your own podcast.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
All right. So the thing that we usually start with is idea to reality. How did Las Comadres go from idea to reality?
This is a very cool and interesting story of which you are an integral part. So, summer 2018. At that point, I've been working with women entrepreneurs for maybe 3 years, and the community would get together every once in a while. Like all of us would get together maybe a couple times a year. And it was, I don't know if anybody listening or watching has ever had this experience of when you're kind of part of a community and you meet other people that are part of that community, you kind of feel like you know each other already.
Yeah.
And there was that feeling of connectedness and sort of instant friendship and support. And we had this summer soiree party at my house that June. And at the end of it, people were just outright mad. They were like, we can't keep just doing this randomly. Like, we love each other too much. This needs to happen regularly. And literally what happened was I just asked the women that had been the loudest in that call to come over to my house for lunch, and that we were going to come up with this thing together. Like, what is it? What is this thing? And once we were writing everything up on the wall, it was clear that this was a membership community, that this is what the call was. So it honestly came up in the most organic way possible and the most grassroots way possible. Like, if you had told me 10 minutes before that meeting, you're going to be starting a membership community, I'd be like, you're crazy. That's not what I'm doing. So that's like,
I host masterminds. Why would I be doing
I do that? I don't know how to do that.
All right.
So yes, that's the story.
This is like the story of Las Comadres is always good because Gabby leaves out like the major part of the amount of resistance she had to it.
Yes.
She was like, no, I'm not starting a membership community. That'd be crazy. And I'm like, and everyone was like, yeah, you are. And she'd be like, okay.
I was the last one to see it.
Yeah, everybody else could see it. And she was very, she's like, it'll be this side thing. It won't be a big deal. The universe had a few other ideas for her.
Yes.
Just in case.
That's just how I function with everything, so it's okay.
It's good. It's okay. So, all right. So from the beginning, how did you start in entrepreneurship for the people that don't know?
So funny, the start of entrepreneurship was also abrupt and unexpected, but that one was a lot more traumatic. I essentially was working at an agency, so I was working in advertising, and I was social media director at this agency here in Miami, and I loved it. I loved my job. It was like an amazing team, just like great work, great clients. And then like something changed with the leadership and it went from my favorite place to, let's just say, my not favorite place.
All right.
And I remember quitting very abruptly and accepting another job because I just needed like a lifeboat. I just needed a way to get out of that place that I was at. And in that other job, I was there for 9.5 days. It
very long 9.5 days.
The most miserable. I honestly think back at that time, I was more upset and just terrified and angry and all the crappy feelings than like at the end of my divorce. Like that's how bad this job was as a fit with me. Like it felt like the whole agency felt like a big frat house, which is honest, like the opposite of who I am as a human. And so I remember the Friday at noon, the last Friday of that second week, just walking in and being like, I'm leaving. like a psychopath, like with no feeling. Like I'd already packed my stuff. I'm like, this is not going to work out. I'm out. And I remember walking out of that job and being like, I can't walk into another job. Like I'm starting my own business. Like period. And had never given entrepreneurship a second of thought, had never considered what it would be like to have my own business. I had been very much raised and like conformed to this idea of like, no, but I'm the one with the stable job. I'm the one with the health insurance and the stability and the paycheck that comes all the time. Like I'm that person. And that shit shifted in a very traumatic 2 weeks, but that had a very happy ending. Yeah. Because yay, look at us now. So that's
so you started your own agency and you did social media mostly for how long?
Probably a year. I didn't really know how to do anything else. So the moment that I decided I'm starting my own business, social media management was the only thing that came to mind.
And it was the perfect time for it.
And it was the perfect time for it. This is like summer 2014. I'd been doing this at this point for like 5 years. So there was a lot. And there was just like it's the kind of thing that everybody needs.
Yeah.
So it wasn't particularly hard to find clients and projects. So that's definitely where it started. Yes.
Okay. So before you built out Las Comadres, you had another whole community basically that you never really tapped fully into as a full community.
Yes.
So let's hear a little bit about Brand New Mornings.
Yeah. So during that time, like right after I started my business, I went in with 2 other women entrepreneurs and we rented out a studio in Little Havana. And honestly, out of just sheer love for that beautiful little space, we decided like we should just have people over regularly. And so I think it was every second Thursday morning, we would get together and it was amazing. I mean, at one point we had like 60 people showing up and we would set up just simple programming. We invited people that we admired that we thought were doing cool shit to be speakers. And we got some chairs. We all pitched in for some chairs on IKEA. So we would just kind of push the tables where we worked to the side, and we would set up the chairs, and we would bring some coffee, and that was it. We called them Brand New Mornings, and we did that I think for a couple of years.
Yeah,
yeah,
and they were always really magical.
Yay!
They were.
Yeah,
and I think that's the like. It's like those are like the little things that keep leading you to getting to the point of, people want to be around you and be in your community. And it's like, I think at that time, like seeing that for yourself was always like, yeah, that's just something that happens over here.
Yeah, it's kind of this, it's interesting because I had never thought about it so much from the standpoint of like, this could be the core of what I do.
Right.
I thought about it as like, this is amazingly fun.
Yeah.
Like, I love hosting people in general. So now I get to host people in this cool little studio, like awesome. Or also all of my business is coming from these meetings. Like as people would come and get to know us, then we were getting clients from that. And so like that seemed like plenty, you know what I mean? Like I hadn't even dared to dream like what would it look like if community was the core of what I did.
Which is so good. Yeah. All right. So in the first couple of years of being your own agency, and then moving into a little bit more of the workshops and that kind of stuff, what were the biggest challenges you were facing?
I feel like it felt like every few months I would just kind of get closer to my true self, right? Like every few months, just when I was getting comfortable. and like one of my things has been in life is just that like I always had wanted to like, I just want to get there. I'm like, I just want to get there and like figure it out and like put it away neatly tucked in. Yes, I have learned, especially through knowing this woman, that moment never arrives, right? Like
that's all part of the journey.
It's a lifelong journey. But I think it was just, honestly, it's been learning to listen to my intuition and learn to let go of things that aren't working anymore and kind of stepping closer with every single move, stepping closer to my real purpose, my gifts. And there's been resistance in those moments and almost like, and not judging myself for the decisions that I made that sucked, because they teach you so much. Like, for example, when I first started, I did have this one client, and like a social media client. And I hired this other woman that I really loved and respected to help with that. And that turned out to be like a nightmare, like a complete nightmare of a client. And I felt so terrible because I had put this woman that I cared about in this position that she had to bear the brunt of the crappiness of that situation. And like, that was one of the hardest moments for me. Like, that was one of the moments that let me know, like, I don't really want to be in this business. Like, I'm not in it. Like, I don't even want to fix it. I just want to get out.
Right.
And then also just like realizing that sometimes you have to have those crappy experiences in order to appreciate the good ones.
Right. Yeah. All right. So as you transitioned over from agency to, coach.
Yeah.
How did you get there?
Oh, that was like a very sudden and like it was so clear. Like
following the theme.
It was just like bending, rip. But it was also very obvious. I mean, I think it was a combination of like starting to really dislike the structure of being a social media agency, and also seeing the opportunity, because for some of you listening may remember that it was sort of in like early 2015 that a lot of the we're women entrepreneurs and we're getting together events started to turn up. And that's right around the time that I officially kind of filed for my LLC and really did the thing. And as I was coming to those kinds of events and like meeting all these amazing women, the moment that they found out that I understood social media and branding, they were like, oh my God, you need to help me. Yeah. Like, they didn't even care like that my clients were like medium-sized companies. Like, nobody cared. They were just like, oh my God, can you help me?
Yeah.
And I was like, of course. And then I started just informally kind of meeting with people and realizing that like we would go for coffee and I'm like, here's how you like manage your Instagram and like tell me about you so we know what you can talk about. I realized that I had enjoyed those conversations like way more than I was enjoying what I was actually doing for a living. And so it was a really clear moment of saying, okay, like this is what I get to do. And I remember I had a business coach at the time, and it was a really cool moment because at the time I was like, I want to be another coach. Like, everybody's a coach. And then I remember she said something like, you can call yourself like the good witch of the East. Like, you're coaching people. Like, this is what you're doing. And I was like, okay.
There's always so much resistance to being a coach. I think it's hilarious.
I know. And now I find it hilarious. But at the time, it felt like, I don't know, it felt like everybody was doing it. And I didn't want to be like just another coach. And it was also a moment of me owning how I wouldn't be just another coach, right? Like, what did I have to offer? And like starting to explore my own gifts and follow that path.
Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
So for a while you did masterminds with that.
Yes.
And
it was coaching. It started with coaching, strategy sessions, and workshops, and then evolved to masterminds.
Okay. So with all the different modalities of that, right? So people will come to your workshops and be like, I want to do workshops, and people will come to your masterminds and be like, I want to do masterminds. Did you find it was just a matter of you have to sort of go through these steps to outgrow the next one?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I found that so much of what I was honestly doing was a reflection of how ready I was and how scared I was. Because there was a part of me that was still very much refusing to see the impact that I was actually making on people. My nerd would come up and my shit would come up, and I would just be like, okay, well, I can help you for one day, and I can give you valuable information for one day, but that's it. There was a part of me, and I kind of understood that I could coach a single person, but the idea of hosting a mastermind really intimidated me until I realized that that's exactly what people needed. Because at that point, I think at the time that I started masterminds, at least 100 women had come to my one-day workshop, which was 6 women at a time, or come to some kind of workshop that I had hosted. Because for a while I hosted social media workshops too. So it was a moment of realizing oh, this is what's next. Oh, I can hold space for this. Oh, I can walk a whole group of people through transformation and learning and business and personal growth. And it's just moved at the pace that I have been willing to see what I could do.
Which is perfect.
Yes. And also it happens to coincide with people smacking me over the head and being like, when are you going to start a mastermind?
Yeah.
So those two things tend to happen at the same time.
Usually you're starting to feel like you outgrew it, and then someone comes along and smacks you.
Exactly. And it's deeply appreciated.
As one of your head smackers.
Yes.
I'm glad it is.
Yeah, she's one of the first ones to ever do it. So.
All right. So when you're growing all your business stuff, one of the things that I like to do on this podcast is get into the real.
The real.
The investments in the business.
Yes.
What were the hardest investments for you?
Oof. I would say that I can't think of any one particular investment. Although the times that I have hired, when I first started my business, I hired a business coach. And honestly, I did it because I was terrified.
Right.
Because having given this idea exactly 5 seconds of thought, I didn't really have a plan. And I had no idea about anything. It was oh yeah, I think I'm supposed to file for something called an LLC. And how am I going to get health insurance? I had no clue. Oh, I need a contract? So all of those things,
you needed Lauren Marciano in your life.
I know, right? I've known her then. But I honestly, I was just at a place where I was I need somebody to walk me through the steps.
Right.
And I knew I was good at what I did, but I had no idea how to run a business.
Right.
And so that's what I needed help with. And that's the investment that I made at the beginning. And then one of my favorite stories is when I worked with Luli, because I remember this is Luli B, who is part of our community. And
on the podcast as well.
Yes. And I remember having known her for about a year before I hired her, and really getting to a place where I just called her up and said, I know I need to work with you. And just praying that the number that she gave me was not going to bankrupt me, because it didn't matter. I was going to work with her. Mm-hmm. And so I feel that was the first of my the decisions that I've been making for myself and my business that were really from a place of intuition of just I'm not going to let fear stand in the way of this. I know that working with this woman as a one-on-one client for 6 months is going to help me get to where I know I want to go. And it was profound and amazing. And I managed to make more than every month, more than what I needed to pay her. Right. And so it was really a moment of seeing, wow, this is possible, and really appreciating a business investment and an investment in yourself, because it took me time. I really honestly had, because I didn't come from the entrepreneurship community and space, I didn't even realize that I was going to have to spend money on, like, I honestly didn't. I had no idea that I was going to have to spend money on my own development as the entrepreneur, on my business, much more than like get a logo and office supplies and get a website, like the essentials. So it was an adjustment, and it's been a really interesting journey to kind of over the past almost like about 5 years really get to a place of understanding like, oh, right now I'm in a moment of integration of all that I've learned, and then realizing when the moment comes that it's like I'm ready to level up again, and what kind of experience am I going to choose? Am I going to work one-on-one with a coach? Am I going to join a mastermind? Like, what is going to be the thing that gets me to next?
The next thing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that, I think that so many people come into entrepreneurship in that same way.
Yeah.
Right? But that there's just this like void of, there's so much I can do.
Yes.
And like how to choose those people that help you.
Yeah.
Any advice on the choosing?
I mean, I always say, like, first and foremost, just choose somebody that you not only admire and respect, but somebody that you like.
Yeah.
Like somebody that you actually see yourself almost hanging out with, if that's part of the experience and part of what's available to you, because you're going to spend a lot of time with this person, and this person gets to see you. If you're scared and like crying and just upset, I think that person gets to see that part of you, because they will be able to support you and be there for you and be able to guide you better if you're showing them your full self. It's almost like therapy in a way. And if you've ever really had a coach and gotten close to a coach, you know that it's kind of therapy-ish. And you can't walk into therapy and pretend to bullshit your therapist. Like, then it's not going to work. So somebody that you like and that you feel comfortable with, and somebody that you see yourself learning from.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So for you, like the getting of the clients, right? So we are, like a lot of the Comadres are just starting their businesses.
Yes.
I know you've used many, many different ways to get, your reach is pretty organic, and that you like really work on developing, the friendships as well as over time you're developing all your relationships.
Yeah.
What do you think is like one of the, when people are looking for clients, what is the ways to, really kind of connect with their community and kind of get the clients that are worth having, as opposed to the clients where you're like, oh God.
Yes. Well, I remember when this happened. I think it was at some point in 2016 where I started to feel like, oh my God, I want to be best friends with everybody that walks through the door. Like, I'm attracting the most amazing people. I love them all.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so that was a really cool moment. And it was a testament to having, and I remember in January 2016 saying, okay, this is the year that I started working like with coaching and workshops and working with women entrepreneurs exclusively. And I remember realizing in that moment that in order for me to be able to do that and honestly connect with a woman, I was going to have to show up very openly and vulnerably on social media, or essentially everywhere. But I made a decision in that moment that it was like, no more holding back. Like, obviously everybody has their boundaries, but that I was going to be a lot more open about my experiences, my lessons, my life, my just everything, the tools that I used, the things that I was learning, all of it I was going to really share with the world. And I think that made a huge difference in terms of not only the people that I was attracting, but to actually attract clients. Like, I remember the first time that somebody bought a ticket to one of my workshops, and I had never talked to them before. And it was like, oh my God, this actually happens. This is probably like early 2017 or something. I remember the moment that it was like, all of a sudden I woke up and there was like money in my PayPal. And I'm like, hello.
You're like, I wasn't expecting
Right.
that.
Because up until that time, I usually would have to have at least like a conversation with somebody before that actually happened. But I another thing that I would also tell people often is that I feel like you should know yourself and know what comes naturally to you in order to be able to share what you do. So I happen to be a big extrovert that loves to talk. And so you give me a stage and I'm happy. And so knowing that about myself, for a good couple of years, I essentially went pretty much everywhere that would ask. I mean, over like the tail end of those 2 years, I was definitely more selective, but there was a lot of me collaborating with spaces. I mean, there was like in early 2015, the Arts and Entertainment District here in Miami had these beautiful lofts, and they were doing a lot of cultural and arts events, and they wanted to also have some educational events. And so I hosted in partnership with several other people, probably like 8 or 10 workshops in that space on branding, on social. They were very kind of conversational and open, and 150 people would show up. 150 people would show up because obviously like they had a huge mailing list, and our communities were aligned. And so it was a really beautiful, and we were both kind of starting out at the same time. Like that project was starting as I was starting my business. So it was like perfect timing. And that's where my email list came from when it started. Like those people are still around. And I think like the larger point is there is a lot of value that you get to give in order to really start building a community, and in order to like inject yourself into that community and be part of what you are creating. And so everybody gets to figure out like, how do you like to show up? Like, do you like to write? Do you like to make videos? Do you like to speak live? Do you like to teach? Like, what is it that you enjoy doing in terms of giving value, and doing a ton of that at the beginning, understanding that it's a long game, that it's going to take a while. Yeah.
So you have created this beautiful community.
It's so dreamy.
It is so dreamy. What role does community play in your life?
Oh my God. So one of the really cool things about Las Comadres is that from the beginning I understood that my role was as the founder, but that this doesn't even feel like it belongs to me. Like it feels like it belongs to all of us. And I have made it a point to be also another woman in that community. And so like, I keep telling people that my goal is for Las Comadres to become its own brand, to the point where like, oh, and Gabby founded it, is a secondary thought. That Las Comadres exists unto itself. Because for me, Las Comadres has been, I mean, unreal. The amount of support. And like when I say support, I feel like people don't really, like, I want to talk about what that actually means.
All right, let's
like,
do it.
I want to talk about how like I'm feeling called to let go of things that aren't working for my business. I don't know how I'm going to pay the rent. I show up in this office like crying, curled up in a ball. You know, like that's the kind of support that I'm talking about. That like
all you just needed was some giant Post-it notes. You were fine.
Exactly, and like in 30 minutes with some giant Post-it notes, we figured out my life. But to be able to just count on people and create and develop the kinds of friendships that will see you through all of it. And one of the things that is really interesting for us as women who are business owners and entrepreneurs is that not everybody in our lives understands our priorities and how we do what we do. So I'm not a homeowner. I'm sure that if I gathered everything that I have invested in my business over the last 5 years, I could probably have bought a couple houses, you know?
Yes.
Yes. And it's something that it's hard for people who aren't in the same space to comprehend.
Yes.
Like the things that worry me, the way that I live my life, like, all right, I'm going to work my ass off for a while, and then I'm going to go on vacation for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then people are like, what? You know? And I think that for people that aren't in this space, it's hard for them to understand our life decisions and our priorities and also our challenges.
Yes.
And so this is why it was so important to create a community of women that were going through the same things that we were going through. And we're going to really be there for us. And so like, that's really what started the community in the first place.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So good.
I know.
All right. We also have to talk about your other business over here. So the board.
Yes.
Is something that, how did the board come about?
So the board is a culmination of all of my work with women entrepreneurs. I really love index cards. Let's start there.
Big index cards.
Big index cards. And there was a moment of transition in my business when I was leaving the office in Little Havana, and I was starting to host masterminds, and I was just kind of like stepping into this place of like, I need to stand on my own 2 feet. Like, what is this business that I'm starting in this next chapter? And so I remember sitting down with my index cards and just setting the intention that I was going to get clear on all of the big important pieces of my business and my life that were going to define this next phase of my life. And it was almost like these cards became a way to reclaim myself in the context of this next chapter of my life. And so here are some examples of what those cards were. One card was, okay, where am I going to focus my attention in my business and in my life? Like, what are the buckets where I'm going to focus my attention? Another one was, how am I going to tell my story on social media and on my newsletters and in my email? Like, what is the content that I'm going to share? Not only in what platforms, but exactly what am I going to talk about? Another one was, what are all the different services that I'm going to offer and how much money am I going to bring in this year? You know, like how many of each of these am I going to sell and how much money am I going to bring in? And then how am I going to organize my weeks? And I think that that's actually, and time management ends up being this thing that I have like unknowingly become an expert in because it just comes up so very often. And I've been reading so much about it. But honestly, like I feel like so many of us set all these lofty goals, but then it's like, okay, so how in your actual day-to-day of your life are you going to make time and space to make those things happen? Yeah. And then another big part of how I wanted to very openly show up from now on was the woo. The woo, which we know and love. And from that experience of, you know, studying energy work and understanding manifesting and quantum physics and all of that, really bringing that in unapologetically into my business planning. Like really talking about, okay, what are we going to manifest this week? And what are my rituals that are going to keep me grounded and connected with my intention and with the divine? What are the big dreams that I'm afraid to say out loud, but that I want to like create like a little spell for? And so all of that together became the board, which is a really cool online experience and also a 2-day retreat.
The 2-day retreats are going to be amazing.
Very excited about them.
I think that the board is one of those things that it's like, you know, anybody can sort of, you can find business plans. Like you can just Google business plans, find a business plan, make it out, and like, all right, here, I'm done. But this is like the level of setting that intention of like, this is how I want to live.
Yeah.
It's something that like as an entrepreneur, I think is so necessary. And of course, Gavin made it super pretty.
It's so pretty.
It's so pretty. So the board, when is the first retreat? Soon.
We are working on having that happen before the end of the year. So
nice.
More on that to come.
More to come.
Securing location right now.
Yes. We'll have it in show notes, I'm sure.
Yes.
All right. So the final question always on this podcast, which you may or may not have helped write.
Like, whatever will it be?
Whatever will it be? So the word comadre is the word that mothers and godmothers call each other. It's a relationship built on complete trust and sisterhood and knowing someone out there has your back and supports you fully. tell us about one woman in your life who plays the role of Comadre.
Oh, I'm going to embarrass the hell out of you right now. Totally you. Oh, it is totally Jamie. Jamie's official job title with Las Comadres is the fairy godmother.
You just need some shit to happen, man. I make shit happen.
Jamie makes shit happen, but she's just like the most loving, loyal, unconditional love, like there for you no matter what, always like amazing.
Oh, thank you.
I love you.
I love you. All right, so where are the best places to find you?
So, honestly, for me, go to lascomadres.club on Instagram and online. Those are the places where I have been hanging out the most. You can also find me at the Gabby Guzmán on Instagram and at gabbyguzman.com.
Awesome. So we will have links to all of that in the show notes. If you are not already following her and you are a Comadre, what are you doing? And for all the
We're probably following you.
We're probably following you. So if you are a non-Comadre listening to this and you would like to join the Comadres, we would love to have you. Thank you for being here.
I loved it. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. And thank you for letting me host the podcast for the Comadres.
Hell yes. My pleasure.
Awesome. So we will see you next time. Thank you.
Bye.
Las Comadres is a community of entrepreneurial women reclaiming sisterhood and uplifting each other in life and in business. Music for the Las Comadres podcast provided by Afro Beta. Learn more about our community and join us at lascomadres.club.